NT Votes 2024. Analysing the issues that count.
The issues at the moment, it's all crime.
Health, policing, schooling.
I'm not really interested because I'm over corrupt governments.
Totally agree.
Heard on the radio earlier that the Northern Territory doesn't gain anything out of any of the gas that gets exported out of here.
Just over the years I've noticed the youth crime has increased dramatically.
Health and education are right throughout the Northern Territory.
The 2024 Northern Territory election on 105.7 ABC Radio Darwin.
There's plenty of people in Katherine who are deeply concerned about the future of the town and want action on big challenges like critical housing shortages, the labour shortages, protecting the environment and the tourism dollar. But of course, another issue that has been huge over the last 4 years is youth crime and how it's dealt with in the Territory. Good morning to ABC Radio Darwin. Adam Steer with you this morning. We are about to enter into our final candidate forum, this time focusing on Katherine, the town of Katherine, of course, a key regional hub and population centre, but it is grappling with some big challenges right now, as I pointed out, critical housing and labour shortages. And perhaps some locals feeling a little forgotten in the lead up to the election. Today, the final of our candidates forum. Let's have a look at the seat of Katherine, first created in 1987, encompassing both urban and rural areas, including the community of Binjari. The seat of Katherine is a traditional CLP stronghold, having only been held by Labor for 4 years after the Giles government election wipeout in 2016. Last election in 2020, the seat returned to the Country Liberals, but as always, it's the details that matter because it certainly didn't come easy. While sitting Labor MLA Sandra Nelson retired, Kate Ganley was given next to no chance of retaining the seat for government. But she went much better than expected. In fact, she got more first preference votes than any other candidate. But that wasn't enough to get Labor over the line, with preferences from the now defunct Territory Alliance, Melanie Usher lifting the CLP's Joe Hersey into first spot in the two-candidate preferred count. What happens next? Well, today you'll meet the three candidates vying for your vote. Incumbent Joe Hersey, Labor candidate and former Katherine School principal Nick Lovering, and local vet and independent Sam Phelan. And Stephen Spielberg is our audio producer there. It is 27 to 9 this morning. So morning to the three candidates. We do have them on the phone, so I'll be just popping the different lines on and off. Today, we will touch on a couple of key topics around crime, the environment, and one of the big issues in Katherine, housing and livability. Due to some other engagements during this half an hour, some of the candidates will need to leave a little early, so we'll be doing things a little different today. But I do want to start by asking each of the candidates to tell us briefly about ourselves and why you want to put your hand up for the rigours of public office. I'm going to start with incumbent Joe Hersey, who knows very well the demands put on politicians. Joe, good morning and welcome. Can you please introduce yourself and explain why you are seeking a second term?
Good morning, Adam. Good morning, listeners. It's Joe Hersey. I'm the current member for Katherine, and I've been a local in Katherine for 34 years. I've had my own business for 25 years before I got into politics at the last election. And over the last 4 years, I've been working very hard for Katherine, been a very strong voice, been out and about in the community listening to people, been out to like Binjari, Rockhole, Kalano communities over the last 4 years. And, the main thing while I've been door knocking recently, Adam, is listening to people's stories of crime and antisocial behaviour, youth crime, people not feeling safe, whether it be in their homes, going to the shopping centre. And, you know, we any number of businesses in the main street at the moment have been broken into. I think nearly every single one has had a break-in. There's windows boarded up, and it's just there are no consequences for youth or people that are breaking in, and people have had a gutful. They're sick of it. And, you know, just a couple of days ago, Jamie from Jamie's Dance Studio had her dance studio, which is an upstairs building, broken into. The other day we had a guy, a couple of days ago, we were packing up from the polling booth, and a guy just came and jumped on bonnets of cars and kicked in windscreens. Now, there was a young girl sitting in one of those cars. She was absolutely terrified. And that is not acceptable, and no one in our community should accept that kind of behaviour, Adam.
Why have you decided, Jo Hersey, to put your hand up, though, for a second term? That is painting a picture of some disaster and crisis that is in Katherine. But why have you decided, I want to be a politician once again?
So, Adam, as a strong member and as a strong voice for Katherine, as I've been over the last 3 years, we have a team, the Country Liberal Party team. We have a plan to reduce, the crime and antisocial behaviour that is going on in our communities. We are addressing root causes, getting kids back to school and on a better path, bringing back consequences for offenders, holding parents accountable for getting their children to school. Expanding school-based policing. You know, we have a plan moving forward for a better territory for everyone. And, I've been explaining that to people while they've been on the polling booth or while I've been outdoor knocking. And under a Country Liberal Party, we have a good, strong plan for a better territory for everyone.
Thank you, Jo Hersey. Nick Lovering is the candidate for the ALP. Nick, good morning. Can you just start by introducing yourself and why you've decided to run for the seat of Katherine in this Northern Territory election? Hello, Nick. Are you there?
Hi, Adam. How are you doing?
Very well. So, Nick, can you please tell me a little of yourself and why you've decided to put your hand up?
Yeah, I'm currently the principal of Katherine High School, and obviously on leave at the moment. I've been an educator in the Territory for about 20 years, and I've lived in Katherine since 2010, and I've worked in Katherine schools all of that time. The reason I originally got involved in politics was actually around 2013 when we did a lot of work. The government at the time did a lot of work to change the way that schools were funded, and especially remote schools and schools like Katherine High, bringing in the effective enrolment model. And I saw that as a very unfair model. And I got involved in the Labor Party that way, talking to, at the time, it was the Shadow Minister for Education, it was Michael Gunner. And from that point, I've sort of stayed connected to the Labor Party and Labor Party values around education and health and making sure that schools are well funded. And it was great that this year, after a long fight, we managed to do the deal with the federal government to get schools funded properly. That's a really important thing for Katherine High.
Thank you, Nick. And finally, Sam Phelan, who is a local vet. Tell me about something about yourself and why you have decided to put your hand up. Sam? Hello, Sam. Are you there?
Yeah, I am, Adam.
Yes. So tell me a little about yourself and why you've decided to put your hand up for the seat of Katherine.
Yeah, thanks, Adam. I've been a veterinarian in this region for the last 25 years and in the whole of the Big Rivers region, servicing remote communities. I've also been engaged in maternity reform across the Northern Territory and in the resistance, I suppose you'd call it, to fracking expansion. And more recently, I've engaged fully in the water planning space, particularly in this region, at the behest of traditional owners. I think I have skills that can bring a community together. We are at a point now in this community, we're at a real crossroads. We can head towards the way Tennant Creek's gone, where every shop is boarded up, where there is a real division in society, or we could come together as a whole community really unpack what is going on in this town, you know, the reasons why a young man feels like the way he can vent his anger is to kick in 6 windscreens. Like, what is underpinning that is a really important question to ask. It's also really important that we stop him doing it. But we need to actually unpack what is happening in this town and why the division exists that makes that sort of behaviour a go-to. And I think I've got the skills. I've worked with elders for a very, very long time. I've worked in a community development model for a very, very long time. And I think I can bring this community together to really map proper services. We don't even have a 24-hour night patrol, you know, so we need to do full service mapping, and then we need to work out how we cover this town and make everybody safe. And I think I can do that.
Thank you. That is Dr. Sam Phelan, running as an independent for the seat of Katherine. You are on 105.7 ABC Radio. Darwin Adams Steer with you. The final of our candidate forums. This time we are focusing on the town of Katherine. Now, Joe Hersey, you do have some other engagements this morning, so I'm just going to focus on you for the next short time. And I want to start with crime. You touched on it before, because Katherine has made national headlines for all the wrong reasons in the last few years. Images of children running riot, ramming police cars. Overnight, we hear of an incident where 9 people allegedly involved in an attack on a service station in town. You have been the sitting member for Katherine for the last 4 years. What needs to be done here, and what have you been trying to achieve in the last 4 years to try and tackle crime? Joe?
Yeah, thanks, Adam. And yes, just last night, the United service station, I've spoke about United, you know, my local service station on many occasions in Parliament and out in the community. They got attacked again. They had their tills stolen, the doors kicked in, the girl there leaving her feeling extremely vulnerable, threatened and scared. And again, there are no consequences for the youth that are doing these crimes, and so it gets back to addressing the root causes. You know, working with families and finding out why these kids aren't at school. Just yesterday at Binjari and Rockall, there was 20 kids at least in both communities that were not at school. We have engagement officers here in our community. So we need to work with those families and find out the reasons why those children aren't getting to school, and work with families to make sure they know the importance of getting kids to school. Well, I mean,
you've been the member for the last 4 years. Surely you've engaged in that over that time?
Oh, 100%, Adam. But, you know, we have certainly, as I said, I've spoken to the Education Minister about this on many occasions, but in opposition, you can fight for your community and bring things to the attention of government. But, you know, if it is on government to be making those laws and making the changes, which they have just not done, Adam. You know, many times they've had opportunities to strengthen the law, which they have not done on any occasion. So it's about addressing root causes, getting these kids into youth boot camps like the 7 Emu station out there, which government have given money to run that service, yet it's not a mandatory program. So these children need to be, you know, mandatory. It needs to be mandatory for them to go to these programs, and just bringing back consequences and accountability, Adam.
Drinking, antisocial behaviour has been a long-term issue in Katherine. We do see the police auxiliary officers based outside the bottle shops. The CLP has said we are not in favour of the volume fee, or the volume on alcohol sales in terms of cost. Where do you stand on that? Do you see a floor price? The floor price helping the problem drinkers in Katherine or not?
So I think the minimum floor price definitely is something that needs to be looked at. But the thing is, in Katherine, there is a noticeable difference when police are not on bottle shops, whether it be a community police or a constable or a pally. There is a huge difference when they are not on the bottle shops. So that is, we have said as a country Liberal Party we will bring back the 2K law for public drinking, address some of these issues, give police more power to do the job that they can do. It's not acceptable for people to be, even this morning, 8 o'clock in the morning, walking around drunk. Is there secondary supply going on? There's a lot of levers that can be pulled to change the behaviour and to change the laws, but the government has not been forthcoming in doing any of that. And so we are asking people to vote for change, have faith in a country Liberal Party, and voting one for change this election.
Jo Hersey is the CLP member for Katherine, part of our candidate forum for the seat of Katherine this morning on 105.7 ABC Radio, Darwin. Jo, one of the big issues that's been around Katherine for a long time is housing. How do you propose to solve the situation, particularly in rental housing, where you see 3-bedroom houses in poor condition up for grabs for at least $1,000 a week?
So the other thing, Adam, with housing, the master builders has come out recently to say that we are on track to have the worst year for home building for this financial year since records began. We have a strong first homeowner scheme going, and I know that's not addressing the question, but I'll get to that in a minute. So homegrown territory grant for first home buyers of new homes, they will receive a $50,000 grant with no cap on build price. Fresh start for a new home. Anyone looking for a fresh start in the territory who builds a new home will receive a $30,000 grant with no cap on build price. So addressing the issues of housing, for government housing, whilst I'm out and about in the community, there are houses that are empty that belong to government housing, so they need to be turned over a whole lot quicker. I know 3 people that have not been in their house for 3 months. There's nothing wrong with the houses. I've spoken to the housing department here in Katherine about this. So why does it take so long for those government houses to be turned over when we know, Adam, that there is a 6 to 8 year wait list for public housing? And it is not acceptable in that area.
Jo, you do have to go, so I'm going to give you 60 seconds. Why should people vote for you?
As a strong member of our community, Adam, I have absolutely advocated. I'm out there talking to businesses. I'm out and about in the community every single day. I go to lots of things that are on. I'm a very visual person. I'm happy for anyone to come up and speak to me about any number of issues which have happened over, the last 4 years. I'm a strong advocate for businesses in our community, and we want to see a change, and we want to see consequences, and we want to see accountability for people that are out there in the community doing the wrong thing. So vote one Jo Hersey and vote one for CLP for change. Thanks, Adam, for your time today.
Thank you. Jo Hersey, who's the CLP member for Katherine. It is 8:45.
NT Votes 2024. Analysing the issues that count. On 105.7 ABC Radio Darwin.
Adam Steer with you this morning. We are looking at the seat of Katherine. So I'm going to go to Dr. Sam Phelan next, who is the independent. You've been a long-time campaigner on the environment, Dr. Phelan. What's your feeling at the moment as both of the major parties look to increase fracking in the Northern Territory?
Oh, my feeling is that the people of Katherine still don't want to see fracking go ahead. A lot of small businesses recognise they can get a kick out of it, they can get a bit of money out of it, but they're also very, very open to alternative economies. Anything that keeps trucks on the road, for example, here is a good thing. So it doesn't matter if they're going to a fracking field or if they're going to a solar microgrid. As long as that machine keeps working for Katherine that engages small businesses, then people are comfortable. I think people are deeply concerned about what's happening with our water. It isn't the dominant issue of this election, and it isn't a platform that I am it's the reason I became engaged in the political process. But once I started door knocking and really got the idea of people's experiences of crime, I recognised that I also had skills to deal with that. And that's become the focal point, is how do we address that as a community? Fracking will always be part of, trying to stop fracking will always be part of who I am, and protecting water will always be part of who I am. And any of my, any vote that I am able to do in Parliament will reflect that.
All right. So we know that part of the CLP's plan, as they say, is a consequence for kids, particularly, or young people who are doing the wrong thing in Katherine. What's your idea of how to deal with the problem?
Well, we need to look at the evidence, Adam, and the evidence clearly tells us that if you're sticking an ankle bracelet on a 10-year-old that was hungry, that did something really stupid, and you're driving them to Dondale for the night in remand, putting an ankle bracelet on them and then bringing them back to community, that what you're showing them is this is the pathway of crime. So if we are doing that to 10-year-olds without actually really deeply unpacking what is happening in their communities, then we're just plain stupid, to be honest. What we need to do is engage the elders, and I know there's lots of talk about, these kids don't respect their elders, but that isn't my experience at all. My experience is that if elders and people in authority in the broader society stand together and work together, that there are ways forward that we cannot even imagine. Okay, so I just want to support that as much as possible. Now, I'm not saying it's okay for kids to break into service stations, and I've sat down with mothers of kids who have done that just recently and spelt out what that means, that it isn't a funny night where your child got in trouble. It is the reason that your child doesn't have a teacher at school. It is the reason that there may not be a nurse to meet you at the hospital. It is the reason that the doctor may not be there. Like, we need to protect our whole society, and we need to bring parents into the space of we are protecting our whole society.
Okay, Dr. Phelan, I do have to bring Nick Lovering into this. I mean, you have a lot of experience working with the youth. Is it a case that the kids are not respecting their elders? What's your experience?
That's not my experience. It's really about making sure that elders are available for young people and making those connections for them. We've done some work with a cultural program at Katherine High School, which aims to reconnect young people with their cultural identity. And that's probably the main thing that's missing, is just an understanding of where they fit in the world. But in terms of a broader answer to those questions, listening to the other candidates, we're probably somewhere halfway in between. The CLP talk about root causes. One of the root causes we understand for young people is a lack of stable accommodation, and that's why we were really pleased about the announcement around the additional housing for remote communities, including Binjari and Rockhole, and they're having some houses refurbished at the moment. The other thing is making sure that providers that are paid to do work with young people actually do it at a time where schools are not working. So my experience has been, we have these great services wanting to work with young people while they're at school. And, my sort of message to them is young people are coming to school, they are learning. The time we need to be working with them is outside of school hours. Dr. Phelan mentioned the patrols. We'd like to see those coordinated better for Katherine and services outside of hours, outside of school hours, coordinated better. So that's around contract management, and I've raised that with the appropriate minister around contract management of services, because I feel like there are resources here in Katherine. It's just about making sure that we coordinate them better.
Rob has sent in a text. I had to leave Katherine because there's nowhere to live. Ironically, I was building community housing and having to couch surf at the same time. Nick Lovering, what can be done there? What's been done under the Labor government to increase housing, the critical housing shortage in Katherine?
Well, I think the thing that's not being talked about in Katherine at the moment is the cost of insurance of houses, and that's why we're seeing it's very difficult for landlords, because their insurance is so high, and we're working with a number of landlords. Through my school, obviously finding teachers' accommodation is a challenge, and it goes in cycles. Sometimes there are good places available at different times. But look, we do need to continue to invest in public housing, and we've seen some new public housing opened in Katherine East recently. But these things take time and investment over the time to get these houses built. Finding a workforce to build these houses is also a challenge. So I believe the investments are there, and the the opportunity to continue to invest will continue with that announcement.
Well, what about you, Dr. Phelan? How do we get more houses in Katherine? It's been a critical issue for a very long time now.
Places for sale at the moment in Katherine. The Labor government has sold off a lot of department housing stock when they removed the teachers' subsidy. We need to actually, I think, really consider buying back critical housing stock here, given the glut of houses on the market. We need to look at providing teachers, all the essential services, some housing. The other thing that's happening here is we've got competition from Tyndall, who, with the current build happening at Tyndall, there's real competition on the housing market. And a lot of people are holding a FIFO house in town, which is, that's driving it as well. That's driving the problem. And then you've just got a lack of public housing infrastructure.
All right, look, we are running out of time, so I'm going to start with you, Dr. Phelan. I'm going to give you 60 seconds. Why should people vote for you?
Adam, I'm honest. I can bring a community together. I have really serious skills in unpacking deep-seated problems that involve, let's call it what it is. It's a race divide and a cultural perspective divide. And I can bring people together to work on that. The other thing people aren't talking about is alcohol and domestic violence. Like it is imperative that we have a comprehensive alcohol management plan in this town. Without it, we can't go anywhere. We're kidding ourselves. I won't be in the pocket of alcohol lobby groups, of fracking lobby groups, of big cotton lobby groups. I will be making decisions for Territorians for our long-term future. And at this point in this town, our long-term future and crime are actually inextricably linked. So that will be step one. We need to look at a long-term future for Katherine.
Dr. Sam Phelan, thank you so much for your time. Nick Lovering for the ALP. Why should people vote for you? 60 seconds.
I'm asking people to back me because I walked into Katherine High a couple of years ago in what was a really difficult set of circumstances. We brought the community together. We worked on real change for young people. We've achieved that. We've got our largest ever graduating cohort coming out of Katherine High with 25 young Indigenous people ready to finish school. I understand what the issues are. I've been able to get results. And so I want to transfer that onto a bigger scale and work for our town.
Nick Lovering, thank you so much for your time. Dr. Sam Phelan, thank you too.
Thanks, Adam.
And also a thank to Joe Hersey, the CLP member for Katherine, who could not remain for the entire of the forum.